Hello everyone, today I am going to explain a new thriller, action, and adventurous manga. Our main character likes to play a crime investigation computer game. But one day he gets transmigrated into the Murim game world. Now, he has to solve countless mysterious cases in a world full of martial arts, danger, and hidden truths. Along the way, he meets many people, forms deep friendships, and even finds a new family. I am talking about the new manga How to Live as a Civil Servant in Murim. I am Ronnie, welcome to my channel. Now, let's dive into the story. In the 15th year of Cheondrak, in the Republic of Korea, a murder had taken place at a mansion. The body of the manor lord had been discovered in a pavilion on the outskirts of the estate. Apart from the victim's own footprints, there were no other tracks found nearby. The closest suspects were the so-called red-faced three dogs, along with the iron sword of the Hwashan sect. However, Yeon, the protagonist, had solved the case almost instantly. He found himself wondering whether he had played too many games. As a member of the Pokoe, investigators who solved crimes using only text-based information, he had become immersed in a game where players had to identify culprits of random incidents taking place in the Murim world. Yeon enjoyed these games immensely. The only problem was that he had played them far too much. These days, he could deduce the culprit before even finishing the text, leaving him frustrated that there were no fresh challenges left. As he lamented this fact, his vision grew blurry, and he suddenly fell asleep. When he regained consciousness, Yeon saw a man standing before him. That man said that he gave him a waist plaque. How Yeon could be so quick to forget such a thing, and then continued with a sigh, remarking that many people dreamed of becoming a police officer in Hangang. The man then called Yeon by name and asked whether he was listening. Yeon, still bewildered and unsure of where he was, replied with a doubtful expression that, yes, he was listening. He tried to make sense of it all, reminding himself about the Pokoe righteous figures tasked with arresting dangerous criminals under a judge's command. In practice, though, they resembled ninth-grade civil servants in Korea, much like the police. Yeon wondered why he had become a Pokoe in the first place. He remembered how that old man he had met before had said there was a rumor about a clever young man with psychic power, so he had given Yeon the wrist plaque. However, Yeon had still been required to prove that he truly possessed psychic ability. He thought to himself that he had definitely been playing a game, and then, when he opened his eyes, he had ended up here in this world. From the fragments of memory left in this body, he realized he had neither family nor home. He had become a Pokoe by solving a few cases around the area, and today marked his first case after officially being assigned as an officer. Standing before him was his superior, Pokoe. Yeon wondered anxiously if this was the sort of situation where failure might cost him his job. He tried to remember what Pokoe had just said, then focused on the clues involving the Pokoe, the victim, and the lost item. After thinking for a moment, he pieced it together. He explained to Pokoe that he remembered the case. He asked if Pokoe was referring to the missing candlestick belonging to Mapapa. He continued, saying he recalled exactly how to solve that one. He pointed out that on the night in question, there had been no moisture left in the lamp. Yeon asked Pokoe if he was familiar with the structure of that lamp. The top cup held the oil, while the lower cup held cold water. A lamp was usually filled with oil and lit with a wick. But, he explained, if a second cup was placed underneath with cold water, it would regulate the oil's temperature and save fuel. Since the victim often processed tea leaves even at night, he was used to working by lamplight. But while he had fallen asleep, the candlestick had vanished, and, more suspiciously, the cold water in the lamp had been drained. Someone had deliberately removed the cold water beforehand and reduced the oil, making the flame go out more quickly. Once the flame died, darkness would have made it easy to steal the candlestick. Yeon concluded that the servant who managed the lamp in the mornings was the most likely suspect, because the one who tampered with the lamp was almost certainly the culprit. Pokoe laughed, finding Yeon's skill amusing, and asked whether it was Buddhist power, Taoist magic, or perhaps simply natural psychic ability. Yeon thought, with relief, that thankfully it had been a case he had solved before. He recalled how much he had struggled when he first solved it. Pokoe told Yeon that he could trust him now, and gave him his first official assignment. He explained that a man, the lord of a manor, had been stabbed to death. The body had been discovered in a pavilion on the outskirts of the manor, and aside from the victim's own footprints, there had been no other tracks. Only one piece of clue had been found on the corpse, with a dagger deeply buried in the victim's back. There were no other wounds, and strangely, the manor lord's face appeared peaceful in death. Some time later, Yeon and Pokoe arrived at the manor's gate. Pokoe shouted at the gate that the Pokoe had come to solve the case, but no one opened it. After a while, a man appeared and asked why they were there, criticizing them for failing to solve even a single case properly, saying that the judge had gotten angry and entrusted the matter to him instead. Hearing this, Potogon lost his temper and told that man to stop spouting nonsense. Yeon noticed Potogon gathering his chi and thought he was surprisingly skilled for a Podu. Watching them argue, Podusa stepped forward, telling them that if they were curious, they could simply watch. He had gathered distinguished guests to help solve the case. Yeon realized they were not late, but Podusa had clearly gone to the judge earlier and taken the case for himself. Potogon demanded whether Podusa was truly confident in solving it. Podusa responded with absolute certainty. He explained that since there were no footprints but the victims, the culprit had to be a martial arts master of extraordinary skill. Podusa laid out the scenario. The killer must have leapt onto the distant wall with incredible lightness skill, landed atop the pavilion, killed the manor lord in one blow, then escaped over the wall using the same technique. Potogon argued that the distance was far too great, but Podusa insisted that a first-class martial artist skilled in body lightning techniques could easily manage it. Then he turned to a man standing nearby and asked if he agreed. That man was Il-1, the Iron Heart, Iron Sword of Hwashan, a master who had reached the pinnacle of his art. The second suspect was Joon-il, the eldest of the red-faced three ghosts, a martial artist so feared that even the Black Way dared not cross him. The third was Pungho, known as the Three-Severing Guest, a terrifying figure wrapped in so much mystery that people feared to even speak his name. Potogon wondered in shock how Podusa had managed to assemble such infamous martial artists in one place. Podusa explained that he had summoned them because Lord On had been murdered, and the killer had to be among them. Il-1 immediately denied it, saying Joon-il had been with him the day the manor lord died. Podusa accepted that Il-1 was not the type to commit murder, and added that Joon-il would never stoop to such cowardice. That left only one suspect. Pungho asked, furious, if they were really accusing him. Potogon realized this had been Podusa's plan all along. If he tried to arrest Pungho alone, it could have turned into a bloodbath. Podusa calmly told Pungho that if he was innocent, the judge would release him. Hearing this, Pungho grew enraged, releasing his aura and declaring he doubted that outcome very much. Podusa swiftly took position behind Il-1 and Il-1 drew his sword to defend Podusa. Yeon watched the situation spiral into chaos and saw that everyone was preparing for a fight. He stepped forward quickly and told them all there was no need for violence, because Pungho was not the culprit. When Yeon spoke up, Podusa looked at him in disbelief, demanding how he could talk so carelessly. Il-1 also scolded him, asking if he was out of his mind. Potogon wondered what Yeon was planning and whether it might be his psychic power at work. If so, Potogon decided he would trust Yeon this time and told him to show everyone his skills. Yeon felt nervous. He regretted speaking so hastily, driven by the fear that a bloodbath might break out at any moment. He knew the true culprit, but this was not a game where he could solve things with a single click. He had to make everyone believe in his psychic powers, to create a situation where his words would carry weight. As he tried to recall every detail, a sharp headache tore through him. Suddenly, it was as if he could see the crime play out before his eyes. Yeon wondered what was happening, as fragments of information flooded his mind. If he could observe it carefully, he felt he could solve the case. Podusa shouted at Yeon, demanding why he was standing there silent and asking if he wanted to die. Yeon scolded himself, realizing it was no time to space out. He told Podusa that he should listen to what he had to say first, and afterward do as he wished with him. Podusa grew furious at those words, but Il-1 stepped forward, stopping him, and urged everyone to hear Yeon out. Yeon then calmly explained that no matter how skilled a martial artist might be, it was not easy to fly such a distance without leaving any footprints. He asked Il-1 and Joon-il if they were truly confident they could do such a feat. Joon-il admitted he might manage, but the distance would be troublesome. Il-1 added that even he could fail 1 out of 10 times. Podusa shouted that Pungho could learn an advanced lightness technique to do it. Yeon countered by asking Il-1 if someone trying to fly into the pavilion would have to push off the top of the wall, releasing energy through the soles of their feet. If that happened, Yeon reasoned, could the wall remain undamaged? Il-1 replied that would be impossible. Yeon explained that no matter how extraordinary one's martial arts skill, launching from the top of a wall would inevitably leave traces or cracks. Since there were no such marks, he urged everyone to verify this. Podusa reluctantly sent his assistants to check the top of the wall. Il-1 watched Yeon and thought he truly seemed gifted, as if he possessed genuine psychic abilities. A while later, one of the Pokoe officers reported that there were indeed no traces on the wall. Podusa angrily told them to check again, but Il-1 intervened, telling him to stop and instead listen to Yeon. Il-1 then asked Yeon, if the killer had not come over the wall, how had he entered the pavilion? Yeon replied with a question of his own, asking if anyone had examined the Manor Lord's footprints leading to the pavilion. He pointed out that the Lord's shoes were about 8 inches long, but the footprints on the ground were easily over 9 inches. Furthermore, despite the Manor Lord not being a heavy man, the footprints were sunk nearly 3 inches deep. Il-1 realized someone must have walked over the Manor Lord's prints again. He then asked Yeon who the culprit was. Yeon stated confidently that the killer was someone within the manor, someone who stood to benefit the most from the Lord's death, the steward. Yeon explained that the steward had served in the manor for many years, but must have grown resentful of the Lord's treatment, harboring murderous intent. By killing the Manor Lord, the steward would gain control of the estate's assets. Since the Lord had a violent temper, no servants dared approach the pavilion while he rested there, making it easier for the steward to act. Carrying a dagger, he had simply followed the Lord's footprints to the pavilion, then stabbed him from behind. Hearing this, the steward protested furiously, asking how Yeon could accuse him of murder based only on footprints. Yeon calmly told him to compare his shoe size to the prints in the soil. The steward's face twisted in rage. Yeon then turned to the other servants and asked if, on the day the Manor Lord died, the steward had checked the teacup as he usually did. One servant answered that, unlike other days, the steward had inspected the tea set carefully that day. Yeon explained that the Lord had a habit of taking tea to the pavilion himself. The steward, pretending to check the cup, must have coated it with a sleeping drug, making it easier to kill him later. That was how he had carried out the murder. The steward's expression changed when he realized he had no escape left. He released his aura, shocking Yeon. He had not expected the steward to know martial arts. Yeon was struck with another painful headache just as the steward lunged toward him with a dagger. Yeon thought he had no time to dodge, but at that moment, Punho stepped forward, cutting the steward's hand with his sword. The steward screamed in agony. Punho told Yeon he would never forget this favor, but Yeon shook his head, saying there was no need. Il-1 apologized to Yeon, explaining that he had wanted to confirm the culprit and avoid accusing an innocent man. Yeon told him he did not mind. Jong Il grew angry at hearing that, but Il-1 stopped him, acknowledging that a debt was a debt. If Yeon ever needed his help, he should call on him. Il-1 added that Yeon's remarkable ability had impressed him, and he would remember his name. At that moment, Pokoe arrived, telling Il-1 he was pleased to hear the great swordsman praising Yeon. Il-1 and Jong Il then left the manor, with Pokoe following them. Pokoe placed a hand on Yeon's shoulder, telling him he would be counting on him from now on. Yeon felt a surge of relief and happiness. He had managed to finish his first case as a Pokoe properly. In the game, Yeon had been used to gaining spiritual energy and fame each time he solved a case, but he quickly realized reality was very different. In this world, when a Pokoe detective solved a case, they had to report it to the judge and receive official confirmation. Although the current case was rare and exceptional, the judge, influenced by Ironheart Ironsword's presence, had given only a silver coin as a reward. Pokoe warned Yeon not to get his hopes up about receiving rewards in the future, since there was no rule guaranteeing any prize the next time. Yeon noticed, however, that Pokoe actually looked pleased, perhaps because his own reputation had risen while Pokoe had been humiliated. Pokoe then advised Yeon never to accept copper, silver, or any form of bribe from 3 categories of people: the guilty, their relatives, and their allies. Yeon felt uneasy and tried to change the subject. He asked Pokoe if he had any idea about the cause of his so-called psychic powers or the constant headaches he suffered whenever he used that. Pokoe explained that psychic powers were usually the domain of Taoists or sorcerers, and that ordinary physicians would know nothing about it. As for himself, he was just a martial artist who had picked up a few techniques, and couldn't help further. He added grimly that people who used psychic powers often had short lives, because, as some enthusiasts claimed, they were loved by ghosts and hunted by vengeful spirits, though he admitted he didn't know if that was true. Yeon found himself horrified, thinking how carefree he had been, imagining he was just possessed inside a game with a status window, when now things seemed deadly serious. Pokoe promised to ask around for a physician, but could not guarantee results. At that moment, they saw Punho approaching. Pokoe called out that if he had come looking for revenge, he was in the wrong place, since they had not framed him. But Punho replied he had come to repay a favor. He then asked Yeon if he was suffering from headaches. Yeon was shocked, wondering how Punho knew. After a moment of hesitation, Yeon decided to follow Punho, since he did not sense any hostility. Perhaps Punho knew the cause of his pain. Punho told Yeon that as repayment for his help, he would explain the cause of his headaches. Yeon thanked him sincerely, eager to hear. Punho asked if Yeon knew about the dantian. He explained that the human body was one at birth but was divided into three: essence, chi, and spirit. Spirit was the upper dantian, chi the middle dantian, and essence the lower dantian. Martial artists usually trained in order from essence upward, but opening the upper dantian was nearly impossible with normal methods. Even if someone did manage it, they might go mad, since mana would flood the brain, unbalancing their internal energy. Punho continued that sometimes people were simply born with their upper dantian open, and such people would gather energy there, just like Yeon, who had been accumulating energy in his upper dantian all this time. Yeon asked, stunned, if he had been gathering energy without realizing it. Punho admitted he did not fully know either, as his own upper dantian was not open. But among Taoist masters, there was a saying that one had to accumulate good karma to gather energy that way. Yeon remembered how, in the game, spiritual energy was given as good karma, so perhaps this energy gathering in his upper dantian was the same kind of information gathering he'd used in the game. He then asked if his strange abilities also came from this open upper dantian. Punho confirmed it, saying those who had their upper dantian open could perform mind reading, talk to ghosts, ask spirits what happened, and even use a spiritual eye to see the unseen. But with such powers, Yeon should have already coughed up blood and died by now. Yeon asked him to explain those abilities in more detail. Punho told him mind reading was one of Buddhism's 6 supernatural powers, and that some Taoist masters and sorcerers showed similar skills. Yeon asked whether mind readers could truly hear someone's thoughts in detail. Punho clarified that even the most skilled Taoist he had met could only sense whether someone was lying, nothing deeper. Yeon felt a bit relieved that it wasn't as overpowered as he had feared. He said he understood about talking to ghosts, but asked what exactly this spiritual eye was. Punho explained it was a power to see the unseen, also known in Buddhism as the Eye of Wisdom, and it was considered the rarest among such abilities. Yeon realized that his powers resembled this spiritual eye, since when he focused his mind he could observe things in great detail, even those others might overlook. Punho warned him that very few people in the world even knew of the upper dantian, so Yeon would do best to search for old texts to study it. Yeon then asked what he meant earlier by coughing up blood and dying. Punho explained simply, Yeon's upper dantian had opened too quickly, but his essence and chi could not support it. In short, his weak body with no martial foundation could not handle such spiritual power, and he was destined to die young. Yeon was horrified, realizing that unless he strengthened his body, he would die because of the spiritual eye. He urgently asked Punho if there was any way he could survive. Punho told him there was a way. He had to learn martial arts and train his lower and middle dantian, eventually merging them. Yeon felt determined. He mentioned he had a martial arts manual called Vajra Divine Art, issued to the Pokoe, and asked if Punho could take a look at it. Punho scoffed, asking how he could show his personal martial art to just anyone. Yeon argued that if it was issued to every Pokoe officer, it could not be very advanced. Punho explained that the Vajra Divine Art was a 300-year-old style. Yeon asked whether the Vajra Divine Art was supposed to be great. Punho replied that no one would bother with a martial art from 3 centuries ago, it was outdated. Though it produced slow results, it was at least stable, and would rarely cause internal injuries. That was why it was given to Pokoe officers, to let them build up tiny amounts of energy safely. Punho decided he would train Yeon with that art for now. Yeon asked anxiously if that was really good enough. Punho told him bluntly he was basically doomed, but there was no other choice. After trying the technique, Yeon thought it was surprisingly decent. Even if it was third-rate, it had its merits. Punho then explained that, in the martial world, a second-rate artist was someone who could precisely perform the form of a single technique. Yeon asked how long it would take to reach second-rate level. Seeing Punho hold up a single finger, Yeon guessed it meant 1 year, but Punho corrected him, 10 years, and only if he had talent. Punho then demonstrated the technique quickly, telling Yeon to watch carefully and memorize it. Yeon was amazed by his speed, but Punho said it didn't matter if he could not follow everything at first, as long as he focused as hard as possible. Yeon told himself he would not fail this time. He activated his spiritual eye, and suddenly he saw everything in slow motion, even the mana flow inside Punho's body. However, it came with another splitting headache. Yeon told Punho that he had used the spiritual eye and clearly saw how the technique unfolded. Punho told him that was actually bad news. Yeon asked why. Punho explained that no martial artist would like someone who could perfectly copy a technique just by watching. He could easily get killed for that. Still, it would be helpful in his own martial arts growth, and if Yeon learned to control his spiritual powers, the headaches would lessen. Yeon agreed to try. He focused on drawing out his internal energy just as he had seen and then punched forward with all his might. Immediately, blood poured from his nose. Seeing this, Punho struck Yeon's pressure point with the hilt of his sword, scolding him for drawing energy from his upper dantian and nearly injuring himself. Yeon asked if using energy from the upper dantian was really that dangerous. Punho explained that the Vajra technique was meant to circulate energy from the lower dantian. Pulling energy from the upper dantian caused the imbalance. Yeon asked if internal energy could be used so freely. Punho said normally it could not, but since Yeon's upper dantian was open, he could do it, though it was risky. Fortunately, Yeon's internal injuries were minor, but Punho warned him not to draw on internal energy again until he healed. Punho was astonished that Yeon could still speak after he'd struck his mute point. It seemed Yeon's accumulated upper dantian energy had unconsciously released and cancelled the technique. Punho was amazed at how much energy Yeon had stored in his upper dantian, an amount usually impossible to build up, as if he had been continuously accumulating it for years. He warned Yeon to be extremely cautious from now on. Yeon promised he would be, then asked if there was any way to freely use energy from the upper dantian. Punho explained that if Yeon trained and united his lower, middle, and upper dantian as one, the separation between them would vanish. If he rested properly, he could get back up and continue training. He told Yeon to keep accumulating internal energy and practicing martial arts to control his spiritual powers. Once he mastered the Vajra divine art, he should search for a better technique. Yeon asked where to find such martial arts. Punho replied he could save up money to buy a manual from a bookstore, or earn the favor of a prestigious orthodox sect and request one. Yeon swore he would do just that. Punho mused silently that Yeon's aptitude was astonishing. Someone who could comprehend martial arts by sight alone had heavenly talent. If only he had not been born with the open upper dantian, he could have become a disciple of a great sect. But this was Yeon's burden to overcome on his own. A few days later, Punho told Yeon to continue training in the same way as before, since he had to leave for a while. Yeon said he had been planning to treat Punho to a drink, but Punho waved him off, advising him not to get entangled in useless matters like favors or grudges. He also reminded Yeon never to reveal to anyone that he had been taught by someone else. Yeon bowed deeply and expressed his gratitude for Punho's guidance. Just then, something caught Yeon's attention. He saw a man eating as if there were no tomorrow, and instinctively felt he should run away. Unfortunately, the man called Yeon by name and invited him to eat together. Yeon refused, already thinking he was in trouble. That man was Constable Ahn, Podogon's nephew, who had recently started working as a constable at Podogon's request. However, Yeon had observed that all Constable Ahn did was eat. Yeon asked Ahn if he hadn't paid again, and Ahn shamelessly confirmed it, asking why they, as constables protecting the common people, should have to pay at all. Yeon thought that was the mindset of a shameless thief and noticed the merchants glaring at them with anger. He knew he needed to get away quickly. Trying to change the topic, Yeon pointed in another direction and asked why Ahn wasn't going over there. Ahn explained that the place was Funluo. Yeon asked what Funluo was, and Ahn told him it was located in the center of the market, connected to the street stalls, and was the most prosperous and luxurious district in the city. All the famous taverns, tea houses, and jewelry shops were gathered there. Yeon wondered why they didn't go there on patrol, since it was part of their area. Ahn sighed and told him those places didn't even give a cheap glass of liquor to a constable protecting the people, and in fact would beat him if he showed up there. Yeon told him that regardless, they still had to patrol. At that moment, they heard a man shouting at someone to stop talking nonsense, demanding that no one leave until the missing silver was found. Yeon told Ahn that it looked like something had happened and they should check. But Ahn quickly hid behind Yeon, urging him to turn around and pretend they had never been there. Yeon asked him why. Ahn explained that it seemed some petty thief had stolen money, and the people who could set up a Jianjiang in Funluo were powerful. If they complained to the magistrate, the Pokoe would be punished. Yeon asked if the constables couldn't catch the culprit. Ahn explained that it was far more difficult to catch a thief working in such a large and influential district. Those involved in Funluo were cunning and crafty, never stupid enough to steal money in a way that made them easy to catch. That was why, in his opinion, they should hurry and leave. However, just then a man called out to them, confirming that they were constables, and asked for their help to solve the case. Ahn tried to refuse, but Yeon reminded him they were already there, so they had no choice but to help. He assured Ahn that he would handle everything, then stepped forward to speak with the manager and asked for details. The manager explained that at the bank, where they lent and received silver, a theft had occurred. There was a separate warehouse in the backyard where the silver was stored. Every month, he recorded all silver transactions and reported them to his superior. But this month, there was much less silver than recorded, which meant there had to be a thief among the workers. The manager begged Yeon to find the person who had stolen the silver. Constable Ahan asked the manager why it felt as cold as winter inside the warehouse. The manager began to explain, but Yeon interrupted, pointing out that it was likely because there was a formation installed to ward off intruders. Yeon noted that the formation seemed to be causing a strange phenomenon. The manager nodded, saying Yeon was correct. Even the Juga clan, who had installed the formation, had apologized for not foreseeing this effect. Yeon asked whether anyone besides the manager had ever approached the warehouse. The manager replied that only he himself had entered. Yeon then asked about the guards. The manager explained that when the guards needed to move silver, they moved it personally, but when entering and exiting the warehouse, they took off all their clothes and were thoroughly inspected. With that level of inspection, it was impossible for the guards to steal anything. Ahan agreed with him. But Yeon told them that the thief must still have been one of the guards. Yeon asked if any of the guards had gone in with a water container. The manager was surprised and asked if Yeon meant someone had hidden the silver in the water container, but explained that they even inspected those, making the guards hold them upside down and shake them a few times. Yeon calmly told him that if water froze, no silver would come out even if shaken upside down. The guard could have placed silver in the container, filled it with water, then frozen it inside. Yeon suggested that the manager send someone to search the guards' houses. The manager thanked Yeon and asked how he had figured it out. Yeon answered modestly that he had simply gotten lucky and used his spiritual power. The manager then asked if Yeon could look inside the warehouse itself. It was steady, but the extreme cold was difficult to deal with. Yeon replied that he was neither a Taoist master nor a sorcerer, but the manager insisted he only needed Yeon to take a look with his spiritual power. Yeon reluctantly agreed. He focused, carefully controlling his spiritual eye, trying to see only what he needed. A flood of information surged into his mind, but what caught his attention was a hidden mechanical trap built into the wall that would kill intruders. Yeon was relieved that, this time, there was no headache, perhaps because he had controlled his power and used it for only a short moment. The amount of information he could sense was growing. Then he noticed that one of the ice stones within the formation was cracked, and he felt cold energy gathering toward that crack. As he walked closer, the intense cold blocked his path. Yeon thought this would be a problem, but when he touched the stone with his hand, the cold energy vanished. He was shocked, wondering if it was because of his upper dantian. If so, he decided to try to send the cold energy away. A gust of freezing energy shot outside, and Yeon realized with relief that he had succeeded. The manager looked at Yeon in shock, asking what exactly he had just done. Yeon felt nervous for a moment, worried that the manager might be angry because he had recklessly dispersed the energy within the formation. But instead, the manager praised him, saying it was impressive and that he had never expected Yeon would solve the problem so decisively. Yeon answered awkwardly that yes, he had solved it. Then he told the manager there was no need for praise, and asked him not to tell anyone that it had been him who resolved the problem. The manager quickly apologized, assuring Yeon that he would simply report that the stolen silver had been recovered. Yeon thanked him, relieved, and thought to himself that the manager was much more reasonable than he had expected. The manager then asked if Yeon wanted any kind of reward. Yeon replied that he had only done his duty as a member of the Pokoe, so there was no need for any reward. However, Constable Ahan cut in, saying it would be disrespectful to the manager if Yeon refused. Ahan encouraged Yeon to ask for a bottle of liquor instead. Yeon thought about it and then told the manager that if he truly wished to reward him, he would like to receive a martial arts manual. He explained that he still liked martial arts skills, and if he could get a manual, it would help him greatly. The manager seemed surprised but agreed, asking Yeon to confirm that was really all he wanted. When Yeon nodded, the manager promised he would find the best manual possible. Yeon thanked him sincerely, thinking that although he had avoided suffering an internal injury this time, there was no guarantee it would not happen again. He needed to improve his martial arts skills quickly. At that moment, a servant burst into the room and called for the manager with urgency. The manager asked what had happened. The servant explained that a guest from the Juk clan had arrived. The Juk clan was one of the 5 most prestigious families in the entire martial world, a noble house with enormous influence in the region. In particular, they were said to be the foremost experts among the 5 great clans in the art of formations. Jugyu felt a chill run down his spine. But for a member of the Juk clan that will be problematic, he is panicking of thinking how did he make a mistake. He is imagining what could happen with him if his master finds out. He hopes that the incident doesn't spread, if so Jug family's reputation will be tarnished. He remembered what happened earlier when he entered the bank and asked for the manager. The servants told him that there was a theft in the warehouse. That's why the manager is late, he will be here soon. He is thinking if the theft happened because of the formation, then this isn't a small matter. Now, Jugyu worried that if the theft had happened because of the flawed formation, this was far from a small matter, and could turn into something far worse. After some time, the manager returned and greeted Jugyu respectfully. When Jugyu looked at Yeon, he had a strange moment of doubt, thinking for a second that Yeon resembled his clan leader. But he dismissed the thought immediately, telling himself there was no way he could compare a Pokoe officer with the leader of the Jug clan. Jugyu then asked the manager if the formation had failed to function. The manager replied that the formation itself had operated properly. Hearing that, Jugyu felt relieved, thinking they had at least avoided the worst-case scenario. He asked whether the thief had been caught on the spot. The manager explained that while the thief had not been arrested immediately, thanks to Yeon they were able to catch him soon after. Jugyu seemed skeptical when he heard that, but when the manager explained that a problem had been discovered in the formation and they resolved that, Jugyu was shocked. He asked anxiously how they had managed to fix the issue. The manager told him that they had found a crack in one of the ice stones and, for the solution, had consulted a Taoist master. Jugyu asked if he could meet this Taoist master directly. The manager declined, saying it would be impossible. At that moment, Yeon stepped in and suggested to the manager that if Jugyu was allowed to inspect the warehouse himself, he might be able to confirm what the Taoist master had missed, since there was still a chance the crack had not been fully resolved and a problem could occur later. Jugyu was grateful for Yeon's consideration. The manager agreed, asking Jugyu to be respectful of the Taoist master's reputation. Jugyu assured him he would keep that in mind, though he was curious about what kind of Taoist master could have accomplished such a feat. The three of them entered the warehouse together. Jugyu quickly identified the defective ice stone and informed the manager that he would replace it. The manager approved, urging him to finish quickly. Yeon praised Jugyu, saying it was admirable that he could find the problem with a single glance, as expected of someone of his caliber. Jugyu told Yeon that he would reward him generously for helping again. Sometime later, after replacing the damaged ice stone, Jugyu told the manager that if any further issues arose, they should contact him immediately, and he would take full responsibility. The manager thanked him sincerely. Then Jugyu called Yeon aside and asked him to come with him to the inn where he was staying. Yeon asked what the matter was, and Jugyu replied cryptically that he would see once they arrived, and it would not take long. Yeon began to worry, thinking that although he had confirmed there was no problem with the formation through his insight, what if Jugyu planned to kill him for interfering? On the other side, Jugyu was thinking he could not hand over silver directly in public, so he would reward Yeon once they reached the inn. As they walked, Jugyu explained that he had arrived in such a hurry that he had not been able to book a proper room at another inn. Yeon wondered what he meant by that, but when they arrived, he understood. The place was far too exceptional for a member of the 5 great clans to stay in. Yeon commented that it was impressive for a warrior of Jugyu's standing to stay in such humble conditions. Jugyu seemed extremely pleased by Yeon's words and even considered hiring him for the clan someday. Suddenly, a servant came running in, saying that something terrible had happened. Jugyu turned sharply and asked what was wrong. The servant explained that the money pouch in Jugyu's room had gone missing while he was briefly away. Jugyu immediately called for the innkeeper and ordered him to gather all the guests staying on the 2nd floor at once. The innkeeper complied without hesitation. Then Jugyu asked the servant if anyone from the 2nd floor was missing. The servant replied that no one was. Jugyu then asked if any guests from the 1st floor had left. The servant confirmed that there had been no one on the 1st floor at all. Jugyu nodded grimly, saying that was good since he had returned quickly enough that no one would have had time to escape. Soon, the guests from the upper floor gathered downstairs. Jugyu introduced himself and declared that someone had stolen his money pouch. Drawing his sword, he warned them that no one would leave until he recovered it. After searching everywhere, the servant came downstairs and reported to Gugai that he had searched the guests' luggage and rooms thoroughly, but could not find the missing pouch anywhere. Gugai suspected at first that a thief might have been involved. The innkeeper suggested that perhaps a martial artist had flown over the wall and stolen it, but Gugai dismissed the idea, questioning why a martial artist with such skills would bother to rob a humble inn like theirs. He insisted the culprit had to be among those staying in the inn. Yeon observed silently, thinking that Gugai was truly clever. Gugai then ordered everyone to reveal their identities one by one. The first suspect explained that he was a peddler selling brushes and ink sticks, and that his bag contained only those items. The second suspect claimed to be a blacksmith who had come to visit a relative. His luggage held only tools like files and awls. The third suspect revealed that she was a jisseong, carrying only a single set of clothes and some makeup powder in her bag. Kugai asked her why she was staying at the inn. She replied that she was waiting for her lover. When Kugai demanded to know who her lover was, she refused to give a name, saying he was someone influential. Kugai wondered if she was trying to threaten him by saying that, while the jisseong believed her plan had worked. She then added that she, too, had a suspect. When Kugai asked who, she pointed at Kugai's servant and argued that if they had searched every other room and found nothing, the servant must be the culprit. Kugai dismissed this, stating that the servant had been with him since childhood. The innkeeper interjected that they could not be certain of that. Then the second suspect suggested they should call the Pokoe, since they could not go on like this all day. At that moment, Kugai looked over at Yeon, who appeared deep in thought. Kugai asked Yeon if he had discovered the culprit. Yeon, pointing at the supposed blacksmith, explained that he had been wondering where the man might have hidden the silver. He then urged everyone to look at the suspect's hands. If he were truly a blacksmith, there should have been iron stains on his fingers, yet his hands were completely clean. Kugai realized that Yeon was correct, although he himself had suspected the same. He had overlooked checking for iron stains. He felt a sense of admiration, thinking that Yeon truly had a sharp eye. It made him recall what the general manager had said about Yeon's abilities, and he began to trust that Yeon could indeed catch the thief. Yeon then revealed to everyone that the waiter had helped the night guard. He explained that the waiter had watched Kugai's servant leave the room and had signaled the night guard, who was stationed on the first floor. If they searched the waiter's room, Yeon insisted, they would find the stolen silver. Kugai asked Yeon whether it was possible they had thrown the pouch out the window for someone else to pick up. Yeon replied that the pair had likely stolen before and would have known not to take such a risk. If they had thrown it outside and a passerby had seen it, they could have been exposed. It was far more likely they had tossed the item inside the inn when no one was looking. Yeon turned to the waiter and asked him if he was right. The waiter, panicked, tried to run, but Kugai drew his sword and held it to the man's neck, demanding to know where he thought he was going. Realizing they were about to be caught, the night guard suddenly drew his dagger and shouted at Yeon, furious that his plan had been ruined. Yeon was frightened to discover that the night guard was a martial artist, in fact, a third-grade one. Yeon comforted himself by remembering that Kugai was nearby to protect him, but never expected the thief to have such skills. Using his spiritual eye, Yeon narrowly dodged the attacker's strike. When the night guard noticed a table blocking his way, he smashed it apart and charged at Yeon again. Yeon thought carefully that by using his spiritual eye, he could predict the opponent's movements. As long as he did not focus too long and risk a headache, he would be fine. The night guard grew angrier with each failed attack. At that moment, Yeon noticed a flaw in the man's technique. Gathering energy from his lower dantian and focusing it into his hand, he launched a precise counterattack. The night guard coughed up blood and collapsed. Yeon thought with satisfaction that his attack had succeeded. Kugai, having seen Yeon defeat the martial artist, asked what kind of martial art he had used. Yeon explained that it was Jinchung Boguk, a basic technique of the National Protection Fist. Kugai regretted asking, thinking it was a worthless style. Later, the innkeeper knelt in front of Yeon and Kugai, apologizing that he had never suspected the waiter might steal. Yeon reassured him that the waiter had been very cunning, which was why no one had noticed. Kugai told the innkeeper that since the pouch had been recovered, he would let the matter go this time. Then he handed Yeon a silver nugget as a reward. Yeon thanked him but immediately gave the silver nugget to the innkeeper as compensation for the broken tables and chairs. Kugai was shocked by this and asked Yeon what he was doing. Yeon calmly explained that he was distributing part of the reward as an apology for the damage caused. Kugai insisted that he would pay for the damage himself and that Yeon did not need to give up his reward. At that moment, a voice called out from behind them. When they turned around, they saw a man in white robes standing with his arms crossed. Kugai was startled and muttered the name Jusung. Hearing the name, Yeon realized that the man before them was Peng Jusung, the great master of the middle Hebepeng family. Jusung asked Kugai what had happened at the inn, remarking that the place looked like a complete mess. He also asked when Kugai had arrived. Kugai then began to explain everything to Jusung, describing how the blacksmith and the waiter had conspired to steal the money pouch. Jusung laughed, admitting that he had no idea such a thing had happened there. Kugai told him that it was thanks to Yeon that he had been able to catch the thieves. Jusung agreed, commenting that Yeon seemed quite remarkable. Then Gugai grew more serious and asked Jusung whether he had come because of the white-faced divine thief. Yeon wondered to himself who this white-faced divine thief could be. Jusung confirmed it, explaining that he had arrived along with some close friends, and especially mentioned Miss Pang. Gugai looked pleased to hear that name. He told Yeon that he might not know about the white-faced divine thief, but this thief had caused quite a stir in the martial world 5 years ago. The thief had stolen money from many wealthy families and had never been caught. Gugai added that the thief might have been considered glorious had he not trespassed across the Namgung family's walls 5 years earlier. Rumors about the thief had mostly faded away, but in the past 6 months, new rumors had begun to spread. According to these, the white-faced divine thief had secretly copied the martial art manuals of the 9 great sects and 5 great families and hidden them somewhere. Along with the rumors came claims of a treasure map, stirring up martial artists everywhere. Even martial artists from minor, unorthodox sects had started moving, driven by greed for the secret manuals, hoping to gain recognition among the great families or sects. However, Gugai still believed those rumors were baseless, convinced that some troublemaker had invented them just to watch people run around in confusion. Hearing this, Yeon thought that such a person probably had no friends. Jusung told Gugai that he agreed, but pointed out there was still a slim chance the rumors were true. Besides, he and his friends wanted to investigate regardless, and if the rumors turned out to be false, that would be fine since Gugai would be with them. Gugai agreed to his proposal. Yeon thought that Jusung probably had many friends, unlike the rumored thief. Then Jusung pointed at Yeon, suggesting that someone as clever as him could also help them. Gugai added that Yeon was not only clever, but also possessed spiritual power. Jusung admitted he had not known that but agreed that Yeon's skills would be a valuable asset. Yeon, however, felt overwhelmed by the idea of getting so deeply involved with martial artists. He tried to think of a polite way to refuse. Then he told Gugai and Jusung that he had official duties to handle and could not accompany them. Gugai praised Yeon, saying he was a rare and excellent Pokoe officer who never took bribes and even used his own money to help others. Gugai added that he had never seen anyone like Yeon. Yeon thanked him for the compliment. However, in the next moment, Gugai suggested that they should go directly to the head of the Pokoe to request permission to borrow Yeon's skills. Yeon grew nervous at the idea and decided he would have to keep a safe distance from martial artists in the future. As they continued down the road, Yeon noticed many martial artists holding papers in their hands. When they saw Yeon, they stared at him intently. Yeon wondered if these martial artists had already gathered there because of the spreading rumors. When they reached a door, Jusung told them that they had arrived and that his friends were waiting inside. As they stepped inside, many men greeted Jusung warmly. Yeon overheard one man asking another why they had invited Gugai to join them. The second man explained that they needed the wisdom of the Juga family. Just then, another man grew angry and asked Jusung why he had brought a Pokoe officer with him, demanding to know if he had come to arrest them. Jusung urged everyone to listen, assuring them that Yeon was an extraordinary talent. Yeon tried to interrupt, worried that Jusung's words might only worsen the situation, but some of the men glared at him and demanded to know how he dared interrupt Jusung while he was speaking. Seeing their attitude, Yeon thought they seemed more like Jusung's subordinates than his close friends. He suspected Jusung's true friends were probably those connected to the Tang family, one of the 5 great families. From Gugai's expression, Yeon guessed Miss Pang must be among them. When Yeon looked ahead, he saw a woman wearing the same style of dress as Jusung, which made him think she must be related to him. From behind, Jusung told Yeon that she was his sister, and asked if he had already figured that out. Jusung then began explaining everything to the group, praising Yeon as an amazing Pokoe officer. Miss Pang remarked that Yeon seemed to possess remarkable spiritual power. She told Yeon she had once experienced a mysterious incident and was curious whether he could solve it. Yeon answered that he would try to help after hearing the details. Miss Pang began explaining that a couple who ran a fabric shop had gone on a long journey to visit relatives. In the middle of her explanation, Yeon asked whether the husband had killed the wife. Miss Pang was shocked and wondered how Yeon could have guessed that before she had even finished. She began to wonder if Yeon truly possessed spiritual powers. He apologized to Miss Pang, saying that as a Pokoe officer, when hearing about a couple on a journey, he naturally assumed it might be a murder case. So he reasoned that the story would go something like this: a couple who owned a fabric shop set out to visit relatives, stopped at a nearby village to spend the night, and then the wife met with misfortune. Miss Pang asked Yeon who the culprit was. Yeon thought to himself that the culprit had to be the husband. In such a situation, very few people would have a motive to kill the wife. Moreover, the villagers had no grudge against them. If it had been for wealth, the husband would have been targeted as well. He began explaining to Miss Pang that if someone died during a long journey, it was usually due to robbery or a serious illness, but if it had been an illness, she would not have asked him about it. Miss Pang felt that Yeon spoke as if he had known the entire story from the beginning. Yeon told her that was why he had guessed that one of the couple had killed the other. Miss Pang then challenged him, asking why it could not have been the wife killing the husband. Yeon replied that he thought it was highly likely the husband had initiated the conversation about travel, giving him the opportunity. Miss Pang then asked how Yeon had guessed that she knew the inside story. Yeon explained that as someone from the great Habe Pang family, it was unthinkable that she would not know about such a case. Miss Pang then asked about the husband's method. She explained that the county magistrate had been incompetent and failed to solve the case, so it had been overlooked. By the time she heard of it, it was too late to interrogate the husband without evidence. Yeon asked who had first discovered the wife's body, and where. Miss Pang replied that the husband had found the body in a bush near the village. Yeon questioned whether it was strange that the husband, and not the villagers who knew the local geography, had found the body. Hearing this, Miss Pang turned to Jusung and said he had truly found a capable Pokoe officer. She praised Yeon, saying he had proven his skill. Then she explained the current situation to him. They had a general idea where the white-faced divine thief's treasure was hidden. After checking where and when the rumors had started, they had collected several treasure maps and confirmed they all pointed to the same location. Yeon thought Miss Pang was far more capable than he had first assumed. She told him they had also examined a new treasure map, which pointed to the same place, a stronghold in Mount Palgang. However, if they went there, they would certainly have to clash with mountain bandits. After hearing her explanation, Kogai told Jusung that both the treasure map and the rumors seemed suspicious. He wondered if there really was a secret manual hidden there. Jusung replied that even if there was nothing, there would be no harm in subduing the mountain bandits anyway. Yeon considered the stronghold, the treasure map, and the secret manual, thinking that something was definitely going on, but he could not quite remember what it was about that mountain stronghold. At Mount Palgang, Pang Jusung's group advanced, weapons in hand, cutting through the rugged path with spears and swords. Yeon noticed that there were too many bugs, which made him uneasy. A martial artist in the group glared at Yeon in irritation, but just then an arrow flew toward the man, and Yeon reacted instantly, pushing him out of harm's way. Miss Pang was shocked, realizing that Yeon's reflexes were even faster than those of a martial artist. Kogai quickly picked up the arrow and found a message tied to it. Yeon asked what was written on the paper, and Kogai read it aloud: "If you go any deeper into the mountain, you will die." Hearing this threat, anger boiled through the group. Several demanded they move forward quickly and deal with the enemy. Yeon asked Miss Pang what level of martial skill these mountain bandits possessed. Miss Pang told him that most of the bandits had probably never properly learned martial arts, so their skills would be shallow at best. Their leader, she estimated, might be a second-rate martial artist at most. Just then, Pang Jusung called for everyone to be silent because the bandits were approaching. However, when Yeon laid eyes on the advancing mountain bandits, he was shocked to see that every one of them was using aura techniques and showed evidence of real martial training. A fierce battle broke out. Yeon noticed that, although these were supposed to be low-level bandits, everyone was struggling because they were fighting in a disadvantaged position on unfamiliar, rugged ground. From behind, one of the mountain bandits sneered at Yeon, asking what a Pokoe officer was doing there. Yeon turned to see that this bandit was indeed a second-rate martial artist. He wondered why this man had appeared before him rather than taking on one of the other martial artists. The bandit charged at him, but Yeon narrowly dodged the first attack. He realized that if he made a single mistake, he might truly die here. Resolving to survive, he deepened his focus, maximizing the use of his spiritual eye, and found a tiny gap in the bandit's movement to strike. His attack did little damage, but it made the bandit furious. The bandit then attacked Yeon even more desperately. Yeon observed that the bandit's next technique had a strangely broad pattern, almost as if it was a hidden style. The bandit lunged at him, and Yeon realized it was too late to dodge. He had no choice but to confront the attack directly. Yeon opened his upper dantian, gathered his spiritual energy into his hand, and struck. His blow landed directly on the bandit's weapon, shattering it. Yeon thought to himself that by using energy from his upper dantian, both his dantian and his untrained acupoints were tearing apart, causing his vital energy to sink. Ordinarily, he should have stopped there, but he had no choice. He gathered energy once more and struck again, defeating the bandit. Yeon could hardly believe he had been forced to use the internal energy of his upper dantian twice in such quick succession. Fortunately, his injuries were not too severe. Pang Jusung approached Yeon and asked if all the mountain bandits had been dealt with. Yeon pointed at the bandit he had just defeated and asked if Pang Jusung had been referring to that man. When Pang Jusung saw the down bandit, he asked Yeon how he had managed it. Yeon told him simply that he had used a hidden technique and had been lucky. Pang Jusung replied that, in life or death struggles, the victor was simply the stronger. While they were speaking, a cold voice interrupted them, declaring that he found them annoying. Yeon was startled, having sensed no presence at all before the voice appeared. When they turned around, Gugai shouted the name, Cold Hand Snake, Gosong. Pang Jusung thought to himself that he had heard of this man before, an evil demon who had perfected a demonic art known as Ice Demon Hand to the extreme, infamous for his brutal temper. He was said to inflict cruel punishments on anyone who interfered with his business, regardless of who they were. Most martial artists who practiced such demonic arts would have been assassinated long ago, yet Gosong had survived because he had reached the pinnacle realm. Pang Jusung knew they could not handle him, as even if everyone attacked together, they would still lose. He tried to address Gosong respectfully, calling him senior, and asked what business had brought him here. Gosong sneered, reminding them that Gugai had just shouted his name outright. Pang Jusung wondered if that was a threat. Stepping forward, Pang Jusung told Gosong that if Gugai had done something wrong, he would take responsibility himself. Gosong dismissed that, saying they would all die together anyway. Pang Jusung pleaded with Gosong to spare them for the sake of the Hebei Pang family, the Zhuge family, and the Sichuan Tang clan. Gosong retorted that they had killed his subordinates. Pang Jusung asked where these subordinates were. He wondered if the mountain bandits they had just fought were really Gosong's men. From behind, Yeon spoke up, telling Gosong that while he might call them his subordinates, they seemed more like recently recruited fighters from the mountain bandit stronghold. Yeon explained that, judging from their appearances, they were likely ordinary mountain bandits whom Gosong had taken command of after arriving at the stronghold. Gosong looked at Yeon and acknowledged that he was correct. Then he turned to Pang Jusung and asked why they were bringing a Pokoe officer around. Were they afraid of being caught? Pang Jusung hurried to explain that Yeon was the most renowned Pokoe officer in the region and started describing his achievements. Yeon thought to himself that Pang Jusung should stop talking, since Gosong would not be deceived so easily by praise. Gosong declared that he had never heard of an honest Pokoe officer before, but admitted that Yeon must truly possess spiritual power to have seen through the bandit's true identity. Gosong then asked if they knew why he had been staying at the secluded mountain stronghold. Yeon, genuinely curious, replied that he would like to know. Gosong told them that he was there because of the secret manual of the white-faced divine thief. He said they should stop pretending. He knew perfectly well they had come after hearing the rumors. Otherwise, why would they bother to subjugate an empty mountain stronghold? Gosong revealed that he had spared those bandits and taught them a few martial techniques so they could serve him, but in the end, they had still died miserably. He warned Pang Jusung that although he could not directly confront the three great families, if he let them go, they would return to their homes and rally the martial artists of the noble families, coming back to snatch the secret manual he sought. Therefore, before that could happen, he would kill every last one of them. Pang Jusung asked Gosong if he truly intended to commit murder just to silence them. Gosong replied that he was still considering it. Even if he killed them and disposed of their bodies, he admitted he might be discovered later. But if he let them go, he was certain they would eventually try to steal the secret manual. Pang Jusung tried to reassure him that they had no such intention, but Gosong scoffed, saying he wasn't foolish enough to believe that. He told them that the moment they saw him, they must have thought maybe the rumors about the white-faced divine thief's secret manual are true. So there was only one path forward. They had to find that secret manual. If they could locate it, he promised to let them go. Pointing at Gugai, Gosong added that the only reason he had not killed him yet was because he trusted in Gugai's intelligence. Gugai then asked Gosong whether he had any clues beyond the treasure map. Gosong replied that if he had any other clues, he would have already found the martial arts manual by now. At that moment, Yeon calmly announced that he had found it. Everyone turned to Yeon in shock. Gosong laughed, releasing a frightening aura, and asked Yeon if he really meant what he said. Pang Jusung felt chills seeing Gosong's martial power. He had assumed Gosong's unorthodox martial arts would be riddled with flaws due to their imbalance and impurity. Orthodox martial arts emphasized stable inner energy and a solid foundation, while unorthodox martial arts prioritized rapid accumulation of power for practical fighting, which usually hindered the practitioner's growth at the higher stages. Yet Gosong's overwhelming strength proved otherwise. Gosong mocked Yeon, telling him he had no idea how many years he had searched around the fortress without finding the secret manual, and yet Yeon claimed to know its location without even taking a step. Yeon asked Go-song if the white-faced divine thief had been from this mountain fortress. Go-song was visibly shocked, demanding how Yeon had figured that out. Yeon calmly explained that Go-song had been searching this fortress obsessively, which suggested a powerful conviction that the thief was from the area. Besides, if a thief wanted to hide something, wouldn't they hide it in a place they knew well? Go-song admitted Yeon was correct. He revealed that he had been somewhat acquainted with the white-faced divine thief before his death and had heard the location of the secret manual directly from him. He explained how, 5 years earlier, in a tavern, the white-faced divine thief had told him he had hidden everything he stole in his hometown. Go-song had asked if he meant the gold nuggets and suggested spending them instead, since the thief wouldn't live another 10 years. The white-faced divine thief had scoffed and said he wasn't talking about money, but about a secret manual, the Brahmanet art. Hearing that, Go-song had been stunned, for he knew the Brahmanet art was a rare and unique martial art practiced by Tibetan monks to purify impure inner energy, an art of immense value to unorthodox martial artists like him. Go-song had asked how the thief had obtained such a thing, and the thief claimed to have copied it from the Shaolin library, suggesting the monks didn't even know it was missing. Go-song immediately tried to buy it for 1,000 gold pieces, threatening to kill him if he refused, but the thief taunted that if he died, Go-song would never find it. The thief then proposed a bet: if he survived 10 more years, Go-song would apologize, and only then would he hand over the Brahmanet art. Go-song asked what would happen if the thief died. The white-faced thief told him that all of his treasures were hidden in Palganki Fortress, so Go-song could find the manual there if the thief died first. In the end, the white-faced divine thief met a gruesome death. When Go-song heard of it, he came straight to Palganki Fortress to search for the manual but had never found it. Go-song looked at Yeon with grudging respect, thinking he was truly a gifted Pokoe officer to figure so much out in an instant. Yeon, meanwhile, had connected the clue about the fortress to a certain case he once read. He remembered how 22 martial artists had died after falling from a cliff, attacked by monstrous birds while trying to recover something hidden in their nests. These birds, called stone-acquiring birds, use soft tree bark to build nests but shot stones at intruders. He thought, what kind of madman would hide a secret manual in a bird's nest on a cliff? Pointing to the cliff, Yeon asked Go-song if the bandits had ever approached it. Yeon explained that the cliff was home to stone-acquiring birds, which devoured stones and killed their prey with them. Go-song asked what Yeon meant by that. Yeon explained that when those birds built nests, they tore off tree bark to line them with soft fibers. The white-faced divine thief, being familiar with the area, might have used those birds to hide his secret manual by giving them pieces of it to line their nests. Go-song was dumbfounded but looked where Yeon indicated. Yeon showed him a nest on the cliff, saying it was likely the hiding place. Go-song, overjoyed, killed the birds and retrieved the manual. He thanked Yeon, saying Yeon had saved him. Yeon replied modestly that Go-song was praising him too highly. Gugai then pulled Yeon aside, worried about whether Go-song would keep his promise. Yeon told him he would, having checked with his spiritual eye that Go-song's words were sincere. Besides, the Brahmanet art was only a copied manual, and Go-song had likely reasoned that Shaolin would not pursue him too harshly over it, making it not worth risking his life. Go-song tossed his whip to Yeon as a reward. Yeon realized it was the same whip Go-song had used to kill the birds. Go-song explained it was a white snake horn-breaking whip, crafted from a giant white serpent of 5 elements mountain and preserved with poison. He told Yeon it might save his life one day. Yeon tried to refuse, but then Go-song handed him a martial art manual, explaining that it was the white snake whip art, a technique he himself had developed. He assured Yeon it was far superior to any third-rate martial art. Before Yeon could object, Go-song vanished, using lightness skill to fly away. Pang Jasung and Miss Pang asked Yeon why he refused to accept the manual and the whip. Was it because it bothered him to accept something from Go-song? Yeon explained that he suspected the manual Go-song took was a fake. After all, hadn't the white-faced divine thief been caught trying to climb the Namgung clan's wall? How could a thief like that have managed to enter the Shaolin library? Pang Jasung then asked what about the manual Go-song had retrieved. Yeon reasoned it was likely a fake that the white-faced divine thief had planted in advance, anticipating Go-song's greed. After all, there was no reason to make a manual with bright colors and easy-to-spot markings while trying to hide treasure. A martial artist among the group pointed out that they had only found manuals from minor clans, none from the Great 5 clans or the 9 great sects. Gugai said it seemed clear no great manuals were ever hidden there. Pang Jasung promised to take responsibility for returning the minor manuals to their rightful owners. Then he asked Yeon why the white-faced divine thief might have bothered to hide a fake manual. Yeon replied that it might have been to soothe his own pride after Go-song had belittled him. But perhaps more likely, he was ashamed to reveal he didn't actually possess the Brahma net art. So he hid a fake manual, planning that if he ever found the real one later, he could taunt Go-song by saying, "You couldn't even take this from me." Pang Jusung thought that seemed reasonable. He added that he'd heard rumors the Brahma net art had actually ended up in the Namgung clan's possession, and had always wondered why the white-faced divine thief tried to infiltrate their household. Miss Pang agreed, remarking that it was simply unfortunate for Go-song. Pang Jusung corrected her with a grin, saying the true lesson was that if anyone tried to control a wise man like Yeon through force, disaster would befall them. Everyone laughed at that, and Pang Jusung ordered the group to head back down the mountain. That night, Gugai told Pang Jusung that he would be taking his leave. When Yeon also tried to leave alongside Gugai, Pang Jusung stopped him. Pang Jusung remarked that Yeon seemed quite interested in martial arts training, and as a reward for all his help, Pang Jusung would offer him some guidance. Yeon thanked him gratefully, thinking it would be a valuable opportunity to learn martial arts from a true master. Pang Jusung then asked Yeon to demonstrate one of his martial arts forms. Yeon displayed several of his techniques, and Pang Jusung commented that Yeon's understanding of the forms was nearly flawless, but he lacked sufficient inner energy. If he could overcome that flaw, Pang Jusung said, he could reach the level of a second-rate master. Yeon agreed, saying he had felt the same, but he had no way to increase his inner energy. Pang Jusung told him there was indeed a way. Yeon wondered to himself if Pang Jusung might offer him his clan's hard art, but doubted it. Surely he wouldn't hand over such a secret. While Pang Jusung searched for something, Yeon reflected on how inefficient the Woohyuk hard art had been for him, and how any improvement would be welcome. Then Pang Jusung took out a pill, the Jade Dew pill, and showed it to Yeon. Yeon asked if it was truly alright for him to take such a precious item. Pang Jusung assured him it was fine, explaining that the elixir was made with the Pang clan's secret formula and would grant Yeon the equivalent of 10 years of inner energy. Miss Pang also encouraged Yeon to accept it, saying that although the pill came from their family's secrets, it was not something they could not share with an outsider. Pang Jusung explained that the pill had originally been intended for himself, so Yeon needn't worry. As Yeon hesitated, Pang Jusung pushed the elixir directly into Yeon's mouth, telling him to swallow and then circulate the energy through his body. Yeon felt the Jade Dew pill melt instantly, transforming into a powerful surge of energy that rushed through him. It reminded him of the time he had forcefully drawn out power from his upper dantian, but unlike that painful experience, the Jade Dew pill caused no injury and flowed smoothly through all his meridians and acupoints. Observing him, Pang Jusung thought to himself that normally one might gain 10 years of inner energy from a Jade Dew pill, but only if they could fully absorb it with a high-level hard art. With Yeon's low-level hard art, Pang Jusung doubted that would be possible. Yet somehow Yeon was taking in the elixir's power effortlessly. Pang Jusung wondered if it was thanks to Yeon's opened upper dantian. Pang Jusung asked Yeon if he felt any change. Yeon thanked him, saying that although he had been tired before, he now felt fully refreshed. Pang Jusung told him that when one suddenly gains so much inner energy, he should move his body right away to adapt. Yeon replied that he could hardly summon any strength at the moment, but Pang Jusung insisted that his body was only lying to him and began putting him through training drills. Yeon soon found himself moving again, using an unusual footwork technique. Miss Pang, watching from the side, was shocked by its unfamiliar flow and wondered what kind of footwork it was. After Yeon had been knocked down 5 times and lay exhausted on the ground, Pang Jusung told him to take a short break before they continued. Miss Pang approached Yeon and asked if she could pose a question. Yeon encouraged her to speak freely. She told him that as far as she knew, the Woohyuk footwork was nothing special, but what Yeon had displayed just now seemed entirely different. Yeon explained that it was the white snake footwork he had received from Go-song, which he used when needing to advance rapidly, while using his usual Woohyuk footwork in other situations. Miss Pang was astonished to hear that Yeon had managed to combine 2 martial arts techniques. She wondered aloud if it was possible because his upper dantian had been opened, and confessed that she was truly envious. Yeon told her that people with an open upper dantian usually died young. Miss Pang apologized to him, then offered him a martial art manual as an apology. She explained that she had received it from a Wudong Taoist master, but it was not exactly a martial art, rather a Taoist external art passed down through the Palwolman sect. At one point, ghosts had begun appearing around the sect, so the text had been transferred to Wudong. Yeon asked if it was truly alright for him to accept it. Miss Pang told him it was fine, explaining she had received it as a reward for helping a Wudong Taoist, but had never been able to learn it herself and thought it might be a better fit for Yeon. She reassured him that it was not a dangerous unorthodox art, but rather similar to a spirit descendant technique. Yeon asked if it summoned ghosts. Miss Peng laughed, saying no, it simply borrowed a little bit of power from divine immortals. Yeon tried to read through the scroll, but the characters were complex. Activating his spiritual eye, he was able to decipher them, and the knowledge seemed to flow directly into his mind. He understood it at once. It was an art that borrowed the power of the South Dipper Star Lord among the divine immortals, allowing a person to double their inner energy and maintain it until their energy ran out, while consuming far less than the spiritual eye itself. Yeon told Miss Peng that he understood it. He explained that the art borrowed the power of the South Dipper Star Lord. Miss Peng asked Yeon to demonstrate it for her, but Peng just interrupted, telling Yeon they needed to resume their training first. Yeon grew nervous at hearing that. The next day, while Yeon was patrolling the market, Constable Ahan commented that Yeon looked tired and asked if he was alright. Yeon thanked him and replied that he was fine, grateful to Constable Ahan for covering his patrol duties. Constable Ahan told him that soon he would become a Podu anyway, so this was nothing in comparison. Yeon replied humbly that he still had a long way to go. In his mind, Yeon reflected on his hopes. First he would become a Podu, then a judge, and eventually an aide to the regional branch chief. If he became a judge, he could gather martial artists and even hold training sessions. Constable Ahan said there was a real possibility of Yeon becoming a Podu. The other investigators were inexperienced and unimpressive compared to their masters, so judges would want at least one smart investigator in their ranks. If a judge only had foolish officers, that would become a serious problem. Yeon asked if all he had to do was continue working hard to be promoted to investigator. Constable Ahan warned him that other Pokoe officers might get in his way, because if Yeon advanced, someone else would lose out. Yeon asked, half-joking, if Constable Ahan was suggesting he should get rid of another Pokoe officer. Constable Ahan grew nervous, asking what nonsense Yeon was spouting. Yeon laughed it off, saying it was only a figure of speech. Privately, Yeon considered whether he should try offering a bribe to the judge, but he had no money, so he would have to win recognition through skill alone. If just one more useful case came along, he thought, he might be able to seal the promotion. At that moment, someone called out to Yeon from behind. Turning around, he saw a woman who said she never expected to meet him here. Yeon struggled to place her for a moment, then remembered she was a courtesan he had encountered before. But her features had changed enough that he hadn't recognized her immediately. Yeon commented that her impression had changed since last time, which made him fail to recognize her. Constable Ahan quickly warned Yeon that he couldn't say things like that out loud. Yeon realized with a jolt that he had criticized her makeup without knowing what powerful or influential figures she might be connected to. Judging from her clothing, she was definitely no minor courtesan. Yeon apologized, explaining he had simply been startled and failed to recall her face. She told him she understood and then explained she had come to ask him for a favor. She asked Yeon to follow her. Constable Ahan immediately warned Yeon not to go, saying that if he followed her, he might end up dead.